Hello people, and welcome to another video. Today we're talking about boots. If you've ever wondered how to wax your boots and take care of them properly, you're in the right place. So let's talk boots. Oh, and if you're wondering why I've got a hat on indoors, it's to keep my hair in check. Let's talk boots. So if you're anything like me, I love boots. I own quite a few pairs of them, probably more than I should. And I do enjoy the process of taking care of them. If you're new around the boot market, you tend to have two different types of boots. You have synthetic boots and you have leather boots. These can be walking boots, work boots, casual boots, etc. But you tend to have two general types of boot. I always go down the leather boot. That's another argument for another day, another video. Between synthetic versus leather. I always go for leather. I just think the hard wearing, they're going to last longer. And I enjoy the process of looking after them, plus I enjoy leather and canvas and natural materials. So yeah, I've got a couple of boots I need to do today. A couple of them are a little bit far over wear. You should technically wax your boots after each outing, or you know when they start to become dry or they obviously need doing. You should definitely keep on top of your leather boots, because if you leave them too long, you start to deteriorate the leather and you're not doing yourself any favours. So yeah, there's one particular pair which are my walking boots and they are a little bit far gone. But before we get to the actual boots themselves, let's talk about what we're going to need to actually start and do this job that we're talking about. So first of all, ignore the homeware stuff. It's just where you've got to do this job. One tip. Do this when the lady of the house is out. One thing I've learned is they definitely don't like seeing muddy boots and filth all over their kitchen surface. Shh. So yeah, you need a clean area, clean space. You need space, especially when I'm doing 3-4 boots at a time. I tend to do mine all in one go, just to get it all out of the way. You're going to need the sink because you're going to need water. This is a good place to actually do the cleaning and waxing because it just means it's easy tidy away, easy clean up. So yeah, you need a good space to clear. So the few things you are going to need, first one being a brush. This is just I think this is like a fingernail brush or whatever you use to clean your hands, but they work great. I've got quite a few of them. So yeah, one of those will do the job great. That'll be for actually cleaning the boot and getting the mud off. Next, a good idea is to get some bicarbonate of soda. This is just good for abrasive, to help if you have got some kind of really thick dirt you need to get out. This is good for getting in there and just kind of giving some more abrasion. Next up, you may need a cloth. This can be used for the wipe down or the waxing. You actually may need a couple of cloths, but yeah, a good cloth. And last but not least, wax. Get this lined up for you properly. You can buy wax all over the place. I mean, here we've got Hogs Dubbing. Used that a couple of times. This is no longer Hogs Dubbing. I actually make my own now. But, as I was saying, you can get quite a few types. Some people like to use Fab Seal. Some people like to use straight beeswax. Greenland wax. There are lots of waxes out there. But I make my own. So what's in your wax, Brian, I hear you say? Both of these are exactly the same wax. They're just done for two different purposes. This is done in a cake-like form, so I can actually physically rub it onto the boot. And this is in a tin, so I can melt it down and get the melted substance onto the boot itself. In this wax, I put, now you're asking, 1 part beeswax to 1 part coconut butter and 2 part almond oil. Now the reason I make my own wax is quite simply, it's cheaper than buying wax. I know what's in the wax, like I know it's all natural product, and 2, it's all natural product. 3, it's all natural product. This particular wax isn't just for my boots. I always carry a cake in my kit, literally always. It's one of the ones that's always in there. Because I generally have a canvas tarp when I do my bushcrafting type trips. And I use it to patch up, or if it needs a little bit of wax, if the seam's leaking, something like that. I use it for that. It's also very good for putting in the hand, I can't remember the name, the hand part of your bow drill. You know, it's good for lubricating that. And it's also very good because it's all natural product. You can use it for lip balm, stuff like that. So it's just a good all-round product. So if you make it yourself. So yeah, that's 1 part beeswax to 1 part coconut butter and 2 parts almond oil. The almond oil gives it the kind of breakaway substance. You'll see this soon. You need the wax to be, you need it to melt in your hand. Like if I can break this away very easily, and that's what you need. You need to be pliable. So here are the boots of choice. We have my casual boots, which are my Dr. Martens. We have my work boots, which are just normal ground work boots, but they're actually pretty decent. And we have my walking boots, which are in an embarrassing shape. I normally take care of my boots quite well, but these have been abandoned for several months. It's got to be over 6 months now, and you can tell. This is a very good example. As I say, they're getting dry. They're going to start to crack soon if I don't take care of them soon. So yeah, they're definitely overdue. You never want to get your boots looking like this. I've never done it before. I am ashamed of myself. Yeah, don't let them get that bad. But yeah, they're all due for a wax. The work boots aren't too bad, but winter is here and you know, it's damp conditions out there, so I just want to top them up, make sure they're good, because they are getting a little bit dry on the toes where you're kicking stuff, because they're steel toe caps. And the Dr. Martens, I do actually like the dry look, but they are getting a little bit too dry now, so they need a bit of a top up. Okay, so I think this angle's going to work for us. It's a little bit dodgy, but what can you do? So I need my brush and baking soda. So first thing you want to do is you want to take your laces out of your boots. Remember how they've laced up, because you know, it can all be laced differently. Again, I'm quite pedantic about lacing. I have a way I like to lace my boots. I don't know if you do. I always like to go left first and then right over left. And then the cinching system, I have my own cinching system as well. But hey, let's not get into that. So yeah, get the laces out of your boots. Simply because you don't want to get the laces wet if you can help it. And you need to open the tongue up properly, because you need to get the wax all in there. That's where water will, when you're hiking and stuff, water will sit in those cracks. And that's where, if it's going to break, it's going to, you know, if your leather's going to break through and let water in, that's where it's probably going to happen first, on the top, where you've constantly got water pressure on the leather. So yeah, this is what I'm talking about in here. And you get a lot of dirt in here as well. You can see if it's going to focus. Yeah, there you go, all in there. A lot of dirt in there, we need to get that out. And number 2. So yeah, I have Scarpa walking boots. I paid quite a bit of money for these. I'm probably going to pay more money for my next pair, because I know like where these went wrong now and how I can improve and get a better pair. When buying a pair of boots, if you want them to be long-lasting boots, you want to make sure that they are. You want to make sure the boot is actually stitched to the sole. A good example of this are the walking boots in Dr. Martens. This is the Dr. Marten boot here, and you can see quite clearly the stitching. A cheap pair of boots will be glued to the sole, and that's where you get the tear out and they start to split around here, and they don't last very long. Those are the kind of boots, I've had them before, they last about 6 months. If you wear them every day, they'll last about 6 months, and then they'll split and they'll be no good. Always make sure they are stitched. The Scarpas, you cannot see the stitching, but Scarpas are known for having their sole stitched to the, their boot stitched to the sole, and then they also put this kick toe all around the edge, and that's glued on as well. So inside there it's stitched and then glued on top, which is pretty solid, you can't really beat that. And then, yeah, the Dr. Martens and the work boots are just solely stitched. So yeah, if you want a good pair of quality boots, look out for that. Sorry, I'm talking a bit too much. Right, we want to get some warm water and a bit of soap. So you want lukewarm water. The reason for that is, well, it can be cold, but warm water tends to be a bit better. Warm water will open the pores of the leather up as you're cleaning them, so it'll open the leather pores up, just like our skin does. And it'll mean you can get more dirt out, and also when you put the wax back on, it will soak into the wax a bit better as well. So yeah, brush, boot, just get in there and get it sorted out. I think one good point to say is you'll never get all the mud off, but you need to get physically as much mud as possible off the boot, because the one thing you don't want to be doing is putting wax on top of mud. Or chemicals, you know, if you're in the workplace and you work in a chemical workplace, you don't want to put wax back onto the leather boot because you're going to damage the leather with the chemicals. Anywhere you're working, you just want to get them as clean as physically possible. Like I said, places where mud will stick the most is in the groove of the tongue, round the edge of the sole, and round the lacing rivets, and also in the stitching as well. Water and mud will eventually rot the stitching, so anywhere the stitching, you want to really get that out. You also will probably want to have some kitchen roll on hand to keep wiping the mud off, like keep wiping the muddy water out. So it gets pretty messy. Okay, so that's relatively clean now. I'll get this. I've had a good 5 minutes scrubbing that, but watch the amount of dirt that comes off this now. See? There's still dirt on there. So what I tend to do now is just give it a good wipe down. Actually wipe the physical mud off it, especially in the grooves. There's always mud left over. Try and wipe as much out as you can. There you go. And then just give it another little go over with some plain warm water. As for the bicarbonate of soda, I don't really need it today, but if you have got areas where it's really thick and it's all in the grooves and you can't get it out, get some bicarbonate on there, whack it on. You can't really use too much, and all it'll do is just giving you some abrasion. It will just give you more. Like, generally with a decent brush you're okay, but if it is bad, just get some abrasion on there and I'll sort it out. So yeah, that's one boot pretty clean. And you don't want to take too long now doing the second one, because you want them both to be, like, you don't want this boot to dry out too much, because you want to put the wax on when they're still kind of damp, because that'll help to pull the wax into the leather. But you just want to get in all the nooks and crannies, make sure you get it nice and clean as much as possible. You can still see a bit of mud in here. It's worth doing well, because your boots look after your feet, so look after your boots. Okay, that's one done. I'll crack on with the second one, and then I'll bring you back for the waxing. Okay, so here we go. They're all clean. They're still wet, they're just damp now. Like I said, that canvas is going to be opened up, sorry, that leather pores are going to be opened up and it's going to receive the wax a lot better. So, first of all, I'm going to go straight in with the cake. If you've got like what's it called? If you've got like nick wax and the brush, same thing, straight on. What I wouldn't recommend is using this type of stuff out of the tin and melting it down and using the cloth and rubbing it on like that. One, because the cloth is going to soak up pretty much half your wax and you're not going to get it out again, so you're not going to be getting as much for your money. And also, you're not going to get it on as thick in liquid form. In this, you can really like cake it on, it all breaks off. Use the heat of your hand to really rub it in. You get a nice thick layer on there and it all soaks in. If you're doing it with the, like I said, liquid form, it just you kind of coat the top of it and you don't get it on as thick. So what I tend to do is I'll rub it on with my hands first, get a nice thick layer over the majority of the leather, and then I'll heat this up, get it to a liquid form, and then I use that to get in the nicks and the nicks and crannies where I can't get with my fingers. Like I tend to drop the liquid in here so it really sets in the seams, and areas like that where I can't get to my fingers properly. So yeah, let's go. Like I said, the reason I actually have this wax, the reason I make my own wax is because I prefer it. It's cheaper to make this in bulk. You know, buy a couple of kilos of each item that you need and welt it down with the right proportions and make your own. It goes a lot further rather than buying like a square of Greenland wax, etc. But yeah, don't be shy, really get it in there. I tend to use like half a lump of this cake on each boot. Really get it in there. Don't worry too much about getting it on your hands, it's just part of the job. You just got to get waxy oil your hands for an hour or two. Make sure you get it all in the seams. The seams is where it's going to rot away, you know, the weather and the mud and the water gets all in there and your seams will begin to rot. I'm sorry, your stitching, not your seams. Stitching will begin to rot. So make sure you cover that well. Get a good coating on there. And in here as well. I actually have Gore-Tex underneath this leather, because obviously if you don't know what you're doing right now, is you're enriching the leather, you're making it last longer, save it drying out and cracking and all that kind of stuff. So you're extending the life of the leather, and also by doing that, you're actually waterproofing the leather as well. You can get boots with just leather, with no Gore-Tex, and they will keep you waterproof to an extent. Eventually, especially if they're kind of worn down a little bit and there's not much wax left, the water will get in. If you have Gore-Tex underneath, you do have a secondary layer of defence. I have Gore-Tex under these, but if I was going to buy again, I would actually not advise getting Gore-Tex. Simply because leather breathes to an extent, not greatly, I'll admit, but it does breathe to an extent. Gore-Tex does not breathe, it's entirely 100% waterproof. Well, I say that. If you don't know how Gore-Tex works, it works on a pressure system. So it can only take so much water being pushed onto it. So if you're walking through a boggy area for several days straight, eventually Gore-Tex will give in. I have first-hand experience with this. I was walking in the Peak District for a couple of days in a row and it was just horribly wet. I've got a video on that actually back in 2012, I think it was. And eventually these boots did give in, and all that happened was because it was Gore-Tex, I was basically just walking in pools of water, because it lets it, eventually it will let it in, but it doesn't let it back out again. It doesn't dry very well, should I say. To be honest, it would have been probably the same story with leather. I'm not going to exaggerate and say it wouldn't be, but no, I don't think I'd buy Gore-Tex again, because my feet get very hot as well. Your feet just don't breathe very well. So yeah, there you go. They're pretty much covered. You will get layers in, like you can clearly see it, like kind of in the cracks. But that doesn't bother me. You know, I do generally have a wax all sitting around these rivets and stuff, but it's just part of the game, man. It just, at least you know there's wax on there. But yeah, let that dry now. I actually have this particular cake has got too higher percentage of beeswax in it, so it is a little bit thick and it doesn't melt in as well. My other ones are a little bit better, but that's a fresh one that I made not too long ago. So it does melt in, but you do tend to get like white bits. It's not a big deal. Still makes it waterproof and everything. So yeah, it's pretty much one wax boot. I'll take it to the next stage now of melting that down, melting the tin down, and just getting it right in here, because you can't see it, but there is a little dry patch in there. And like I said, that is where the water is going to sit in there and potentially break through eventually. Another quick tip while I'm just doing my last boot. This is my Doc Martin boot. I've just done my work boots, which look quite similar. But both of these have actually got the physical stitching. You probably can't see it on that one because it's black. This is a better example. They've actually got the physical stitching around the edge. There you go. See, you can actually, it's got physical stitching. So you want to make sure you get plenty of wax actually on that stitching. Soak that stitching in wax. Like I've said it a few times, but you don't want it to rot. So that's just worth mentioning because the Scarpa don't actually have external stitching. So yeah, nearly done them all now. It doesn't actually take that long. Like I say, I normally do them all in one big batch every couple of months, or after. If I had a particularly bad outing where it's been really wet and the boots have took a battering all there, I'll give that particular boot a going over a couple of days after I get back. Okay, so back to the Scarpa boots. We're now going to put this hob on a low temperature, maybe about 3. Obviously, because I use this old tin, this old Hobbs tin, it's pretty solid metal, so I can just sling that straight on there. Pretty solid tin, and that'll just slowly melt that through. Now you want a pair of gloves so you can get that off there safely. Okay, so back to the Scarpa boots. We're now going to put this hob on a low temperature, maybe about 3. Obviously, because I use this old tin, this old Hobbs tin, it's pretty solid metal, so I can just sling that straight on there. Pretty solid tin, and that'll just slowly melt that through. Now you want a pair of gloves so you can get that off there safely. Okay, so that's pretty much, that's all I need, you know. I don't need to melt it all the way, it's pretty much gone all the way. Now, here's the cloth. Be very careful with this, the stove is warm, obviously. I don't need to go over a health and safety manual with you, but just be careful with it. The tin will also be very hot. This is why I don't use this method for the whole boot, because the cloth soaks up a lot of the wax and it's difficult to get it out. But it's now, it's going to be difficult for you to see, but as you apply it into the boot, it just kind of runs into the guts because it's still very runny. You don't need a lot, I'm just literally applying it into the corners to let it run in there and set. And I'll just run it along the seams as well, just so it really gets in there. But it literally will start to set pretty much instantly, so it's just long enough to let itself run in. Some people like to use this method for the whole boot, but I've already explained why I don't. You can still see the dirt coming off there, so you'll never get it fully clean, but you can do your best. And by this point, my boot's starting to dry up a little bit, so I can see where the wax is drying quicker than other places. Like I can see the wax is starting to dry here, and it's going a little bit dry, so it probably needs a bit more there. So I'll just add it on as and where needed. Okay, now laces. Laces are pretty cheap. These are the laces for my work boots. They are very cheap. I need to replace them. Scarpa laces aren't too bad. They're a bit more hardware and they're a bit more of a quality lace, but you can still get better. And then these are the Doc Martin laces. They're not the best, but they're not hard wearing boots. I don't wear them in the workplace or anything like that. So they're more of just an aesthetic value really, so I do keep those as they are. But I do wax my laces, especially the Scarpa ones. I haven't actually done the work boot ones yet, so I'm going to do those now. But I do wax the laces simply because when you're out there and you're in soaking wet conditions, your laces just get saturated, and then having to tie wet laces isn't fun. So if you wax them, it's not going to keep it all out, but it'll do its best. So this is the amount of wax I've got left from doing those 3 boots, those 3 pairs of boots. So if you've only got 1 pair of boots, 1 kind of cake, if you're going to make your own stuff, 1 kind of cake will do roughly about 3 times. And then this is kind of unusable now in terms of doing boots, so I'll generally just, if I had loads left like this kind of substance, I would just remelt it down and put it back into another cake. But it's quite good for this, for just placing in there. It's really, really supple now. And just run the laces through. And that'll just make them somewhat waterproof. So there you have it. my boots are done. Several pairs of boots, all nicely waxed. The other pairs are over there. Laces are here. Need to just put those back into the boot. If you do have some areas where there is extra white, there you go, extra white bit's going to just sit on top. That doesn't bother me, but if it does bother you, get the hairdryer, warm the leather back up again, and it should soak back in properly. Like I say, it doesn't bother me. It just reminds me that my boots are well waxed. So, and it'll wear off as well. After a couple of walks, it'll just kind of wear in, and the heat of your boot will kind of soak it in as well. So, don't worry about that. So I've just done all that, cleaned up, and forgot that I haven't done my gaiters. So I use leather gaiters. Not many people do, admittedly, but most people use Gore-Tex gaiters. I use leather ones. They're only short. I just like them. Simple as that. They're not the best, but I like the leather. So if you have leather gaiters, do them at the same time. It's obvious. These are Rogue gaiters. They do the boots as well. I bought these off the Rainier site, if it'll focus. There you go. So yeah, there you have it. I hope you learned something from this experience. I've been doing it a long while now. I'm a big fan of leather boots, as you can probably tell. Any questions, let me know. I hope everything I said in the video was factual. I'm pretty sure it was. But yeah, it's been working for me for about 4 years now. So yeah, any questions, let me know. And that's it. Hopefully your boots will be ready for winter. The only reason I'm doing this is because it's sort of mid-January now and it's getting pretty bleak outside. So yeah, until next time, thanks for watching, and I'll see you again very, very soon. Hello again, people. So I hope that video was good information for you, and I hope you can take something from that, and hopefully you won't get wet feet in the future. If you recall me mentioning that my boots gave way and my feet got wet on one of my previous trips, that video is the video on screen now, where me and Bill went to Bleak Low in the Peak District. It was a pretty horrendous trip, so much so that we actually considered calling Mountain Rescue at one point. The really bad parts of that trip aren't actually recorded because it was so bad that I couldn't even record. But yeah, it's a pretty interesting video, so go and take a trip down memory lane. That video is about 3 years old now, so go and check that one out. If not, if you would like to like this video and leave me a comment, I'd really appreciate it. I'd love to hear your input. If there's anything I'm doing wrong or I could do differently to make the process of waxing my boots better, I'd love to hear it. If not, thanks for watching, and I'll see you again very, very soon.